A racing heart, you can't sit still, got a tight chest, and your stomach is all in knots. And hopefully, this sounds like it's ringing something because this is definitely what you feel. And you can't really tell the difference between whether or not it's your anxiety and or if it's excitement, right? If I should be worried or if I should actually fully engage in this. And this pathway is actually going to be something that breaks this down in a simplistic way. For you to actually continue building the ability to trust your decision making along the way. Because one of the things that is very common between excitement and danger are emotions feeling like this. Okay. It definitely feels very similar, but yet creates different experiences. And it's less about the emotions, it's more about the stories that we're cultivating. What's very interesting about this physical description, okay, is that your body can't tell the difference between, whether this is, danger in front of us or if this is something that we can really be excited about. It's the same signal. So oftentimes what decides is actually us, you, and it's the meaning and story that you provide. Okay. And so on one path, we have what would lead to danger. Okay. Same emotions, same experiences, but yet different paths. Okay. On one hand, we would say one thing leads to danger. And what is cultivated through the lens of danger are things like a downward spiral. Okay. Where you're starting to notice yourself kind of spiral out of control. Okay. With your thoughts, with your emotions. And obviously, it's building what we call negative momentum. All right. But then, other than your downward spiral, okay, you become very protective. Okay. Your guard is up, walls are up. Okay. Maybe you become, in a way, very defensive, right? That could be also another posture to that. Okay. You become very defensive, perhaps in this same danger that's experienced. So that way you can actually see this. And we'll get to that picture towards the end there. Okay. Which kind of explains what we're dealing with here in a way. All right. But you'll feel very defensive. Okay. Downward spirals. You're all in your head. Okay. You actually pull away, you interrogate. Okay. You're honestly, in a lot of ways, if you're not careful, even trying to look for a way out. Okay. And this is something that we really want to just be honest about. Okay. On this path to actually discerning the difference. Because we'll interrogate, we'll ask questions, again, pull away, self-sabotage because we don't want to get hurt, all the different things. Okay. And so many other things that are present that will blame the feeling on, right? It's like it's reminding me of this. I feel like this. So clearly, what did happen before is bound to happen again, right? But then if we go over to the right side, which is level of excitement, well, these are different stories that actually allows this excitement to come alive. Again, same feelings, they never changed, but the story that we attach to it did, where we begin to tell ourselves things like, I'm allowed to feel this. Okay. Or perhaps when you might tell yourself, okay, that this means something real is happening, right? Like what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing with this person is very much real. Something that I could possibly and actually enjoy, right? Being in the present of it. And what's so different between these two, again, y'all, is the stories. That's what actually breathes life into whether or not this is danger or this is excitement. It's the stories. Okay. And so, what we have to be able to understand en route to actually growing in this discernment is recognizing that the story we tell is either going to create the danger we feel or the excitement we have. Right. So, of course, we have moments where we're sitting in front of a road or we're, maybe in a random place where we would say, yes, a bear standing in the road, a lion standing in the road, right? A deer running at us, head straight, right? Obviously, a lot of the feelings, tight chest, racing heart, that's probably telling us danger because we're looking at the context and we're going, okay, we got to get out the way, right? Because this is a life or death situation. But it's interesting because the same racing heart, sweat of the brow, stomach and knots, the nervousness, the anxiety also can show up when you find somebody that makes sense for you. It's someone you prayed for. You're excited, all the things. And again, the meaning is what separates the difference. Okay. This isn't necessarily positive thinking that we're trying to actually install. This is us understanding that nervous system literacy is a real thing. And it matters because you probably have spent years mislabeling one thing as something else. Okay. Not because it's what was true, but because it was just what you were used to. It was what you were familiar with. It was something that we immediately associated to past experiences that we're labeling into the moment now. Okay. And we have to get better at being able to build this level of discernment because you could easily miss out on somebody that makes sense for you, all because of the emotions that we're allowing to carry more than just data, but is supposed to be in some way, shape, or form standing as truths in our lives. Okay. And especially if past relationships taught you that a racing heart usually meant something was bad, okay, or that something awful was coming, your body learned to adjust to that, right? Because in those moments, in those conditionings, that is when the bad thing's happening. However, that's not what's happening now. So we have to be curious to check those stories so we actually can live beyond it. Okay. So here's the practice for you to actually start seeing these things as intentional data instead of something that is bound to experience or another moment that you had previously that you're expecting to see again. Okay. We have to learn to make a decision or at least steps to the decision. And before we decide what it means, okay, we need to do a few things. All right. Number one is we need to actually name the sensation. Okay. We're going to put this to the right and we're going to put this in a different color. All right. We're going to name the sensation. What are we feeling? Okay. Because if we can name what we're feeling, this is going to be the first step in us being able to move beyond it. Okay. We can't really move beyond it if we don't really know what it is we're feeling. And we can't really give ourselves the ability to regulate it if we really don't know where it's located. Okay. So we're going to name the sensation, but here's the key without the story. Okay. So scratching the story, removing the narrative from it. Okay. You're just going to simply say something like your heart is racing or you have a tight chest. Okay. You're feeling queasy, empty, nervous. All right. Just the physical fact. Okay. Then we can just put this in parentheses. Physical. Can't read that, but I'll put it below it. All right. Physical. And then, okay, for this next step, we're going to actually ask for evidence. Is there actual legitimate evidence of danger, or is this just us looking for a pattern match, if you will? Okay. So we have to ask ourselves where or what, okay, is the danger? And we got to name it because what we'll find is that oftentimes it may not be any kind of danger in sight. And that's what we're looking to actually cultivate so that way we can make a healthier decision in these moments and situations. All right. So if we're actually looking for danger, we're going to raise the question about evidence. And before we start attaching stories and narratives, we need to name the sensation. Okay. Sometimes the answer is real, and that's actually a place of revealing territory. Okay. One of the very many steps to our fundamental cornerstone of us building this discernment and relational health. Okay. That's actually not navigating and notifying the red flags that we see are there and not acting as if they're not. Okay. But sometimes the honest answer is that nothing is actually wrong right now. And that's okay. Okay. This is just what caring about someone feels like in a body that has been hurt before. And so we're discerning the two by naming the physical sensation and then notifying where the danger is. Because even though the emotions are the same, the stories are what's shifting between it being legitimate danger or excitement. And if you're finding yourself making stories about something that truly is dangerous, okay, but you're seeing it as excitement, okay, realize that excitement carries a lot of tendencies of abundance, joy, fulfillment. Danger is something that is potentially even life threatening. Okay. Obviously, to an extent, it doesn't present safety for you or others around you. All right. So we're wanting to be able to differentiate the two and not just force a story to equate to either one, We want to be honest enough to know what we're looking at and what we're experiencing in our reality so we can discern the difference. Okay. Because oftentimes there are things that you might conflate as excitement, but is really dangerous. But that's only because you're operating in this from familiarity, not because you're operating it from a lens of truth, honesty, and even benefit of people immediately around you, whether it's your children, the safety of your home, okay, things of that sort. Truth is, you don't regulate any of this by suppressing the feeling, as we know, but you regulate this long enough to check whether the story matches the evidence, okay? Because we're looking for hard evidence, not things that we're anticipating, but things that have actually happened, not what we're hoping to see, but what we truly see in our reality. And if we even make a chart where we say, hey, here is the story in my mind, and then here's the truth, we're going to look to see if there's any connections or alignment. In this healthy way, we'll be able to discern a little bit better. And along the way, regulate, because some of the things that we're anticipating to happen doesn't happen. And some of the things that we're prepared to happen is only because of what's happened before, not because of what's happening in the moment. And the gap between the sensation and the story is literally where discernment lives. And I break this down in a previous video that I've made, just discussing that the problems that you really have isn't actually geared towards relationships, but towards a leak that is really revealed in why discernment has actually been impacted the most and what we need to do in next steps to recover that to help you make healthier relational decisions and trust. So watch that next if you have it. It should pop up on the screen somewhere around here. And next time we're going to tackle the topic of what you do once you discover whether or not this is in danger or excitement. And that's actually you putting yourself on trial to an emotion and story that honestly never ends.